What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only NIO stock, what you should be looking out for the future, and break down whether or not Wyckoff is still relevant. I'm going to actually show you some charts I drew many weeks ago, quite a while back in like the end of 2022, and I want to break down whether or not this is still valid and where NIO could be from a Wyckoфfian standpoint. Now, before I break anything down, before I get into any details, let me mention a couple of things real quick. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each valued at up to $3,000. And the best part is, any could be a free NIO share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 9 days. Make sure you check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So many months ago, I'm not changing my charts at all. I'm keeping them exactly the same. I haven't touched this in quite a while, okay? And I drew out a possibility. I made sure to tell you I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I drew out the possibility of NIO respecting a Wyckoфfian accumulation style, and I do believe it still has some merits, but I don't think it's going to play out exactly like this. And let me elaborate on that. So NIO was coming down during this down phase that was perpetuating. Since NIO was at this 40 level, we got a major sell-off that started. This was around, this became more evident around the end of 2021. And I just want to note, if you're looking at accumulation schematic number 1, we had our preliminary support here, most likely a nice bounce. We came all the way down for the selling climax, an automatic reaction bounce just about here. This was actually a very small right here. Then we had like a small sell test. It's very minuscule, very hard to see. A nice bounce because of the fact that volume did end up increasing. Then we came all the way down for the sell test in phase B. Then we got our first bounce. We actually formed kind of like a double top like formation. Then we saw the big sell-off starting. And then during the big sell-off, we're somewhat respecting a slight uptrend, but NIO is starting to show some weakness, and it's becoming very difficult for this to play out perfectly. So I'm seeing two main possibilities. All right. Here are the two possibilities. The first one is NIO might have bottomed already around this $8 level, and NIO is, kind of seeing another reaccumulation within this giant one, and we are on the verge of seeing a big recovery. Now, do I think that's what's going to happen? I would hope so. However, the problem with this is that would assume that NIO is on the verge of seeing a nice retest in a much higher area, getting the sign of strength and etc. But right now, the fundamentals are not aligning to that, right? There's no guarantee that this big drop has to be the end, and NIO had to have bottomed right here, and that has to be the spring. It could continue to come lower, and the spring could form down here. That's also a possibility, all right? And the real test and recovery could come later, like this. I don't know for sure. I just want to note that. Now, I also want to note that NIO does have some more gaps in the lower levels. We have to watch the $8 level, 7.12, which is the 0.65 retracement, then the 0.707, which would be 5.84. I don't really see NIO dropping that low, but it depends on different factors. There are big geopolitical tensions that are continuing to rise. We also have inflation potentially coming up. That could be very negative for the overall stock market. And as far as price action goes, it looks like we formed, well, I wouldn't really count this. I wouldn't really count this wick right here. This was actually a glitch. So this candle right here doesn't really count, the one right here. So overall, it has been respecting a slight downtrend. It looks like we're getting tighter and tighter as time goes on and getting ready for a big move. My problem is, look, it is possible that this was the spring and we're about to form like the test right here, and then we're going to continue going, but I'm thinking that's a little bit unlikely. That's just my honest opinion. You can't always predict the future perfectly, and I think it's a little less likely that this was actually the spring. It is possible that during this drop, you could form a formation like this where you have a big drop, you kind of bounce around a little bit, and then you continue dropping a little lower. That's also a possibility. So on the chart, it's possible that we came down very hard, just like this phase right here, and then there's this bounce area before we continue dropping lower. There's a possibility that that's what's about to happen to NIO, and this thing could form new lows, right? This doesn't have to be the spring. It may have been it, but the real spring might be a little bit later. It could come somewhere around this level down here in the $8 range, maybe the sevens. It could come even lower, guys. Unfortunately, I know you don't want to hear that, but looking at the weakness NIO has been showing recently and the fundamental analysis of this economy, I wouldn't rule it out, right? We could get a spring there, then a test later on. It's just very hard to predict. Now, why am I talking about fundamentals? Well, inflation's going up. We're seeing Americans depending heavily on credit. Is that sustainable? The answer is no. It's not sustainable because if Americans are just borrowing money to pay for things over and over again, there's a limit to this money. It's not going to last forever. And it's dangerous, very dangerous for them to do this because eventually when the money runs out, it's going to be very difficult for Americans to survive and continuing to make their payments. When that happens, we're likely going to see a big decrease in demand. We're likely going to see even worse earnings, and we're likely going to see a big slowdown in this economy, a big contraction that could lead to a recession. When all this stuff is happening, it's not going to be good for the stock market. It's not going to be good for earnings. That's why many people have been talking about an earnings recession. If you thought this earnings cycle was bad, the next one, maybe the next few, may be even worse. A lot of people talk about how, when the Fed pivots, the market crashes. That's not true. That's not true at all. What happens is the economy hits a very, very bad point. At least that happened in history, to the point where the Fed has to start to pivot. Maybe it happens a little early, and they start to actually decrease the rates to try to limit the pain once a lot of the obstacles are out of the way. Meaning that, and the market did not crash because the Fed pivot in 2008. It had to do with the financial crisis. We did not crash in 2001 because of the Fed's pivot. We crashed because of the fact that there was a dot-com bubble that ended up bursting, right? So in this case, the credit markets, stress in the credit markets, the high inflation, the economic slowdown, the earnings recession, all those things combined could cause a lot of pain for the stock market, right? I just want to make that clear. So what is NIO doing? We are likely in a giant accumulation schematic, and it is possible. Whoopsie daisy, sorry about that, guys. Sorry. But anyways, it is possible that this right here was the spring and NIO is going to start respecting an uptrend. However, from a technical standpoint, NIO is still showing some weakness, and downside does still seem possible over the next few weeks because there's not really much really like backing the rally that we saw fundamentally, at least for the stock market. And it's also very possible that there could be other black swan events. I did mention the fact that there are very, very big geopolitical issues, and the stress in the credit markets is just barely starting to show. So I do believe that seeing lots of big banks announcing dividends is a sign that they want more shareholders to continue holding shares because the businesses need liquidity. Excuse me, sorry guys, liquidity during times of crisis, during difficult times. And it looks to me like it is possible that we haven't formed the spring yet, the absolute bottom for NIO. It could still form new lows. It is still possible. I know it's unfortunate, but I just want everyone to be prepared for that, all right? Do not fear, do not fret during times like these because this is an opportunity to buy more NIO shares for cheap because in the long-term future, I believe it's going to break all-time highs, get back to the 70s, the hundreds. We just have to be patient. It becomes harder to see these things when the economy is not doing as well, when we see share prices low. Well, remember, Tesla once had a very low share price. If you account for the stock splits, Tesla would have been in the 10s before, the 15s. Now this thing is in the hundreds, and I do believe NIO can do the same thing based off the growth it is showing us, the resilience of the company and its board, directors, and etc. And I believe there's still bright times to come. So where's NIO right now? We're in the 10s. We're barely holding 10. If that fails, I know I haven't really highlighted these levels, but 9.7 to 9.4 are going to be key levels. Break below that, then we have 9 flat. And if that doesn't hold, we have the $8 flat zone. That's going to be very key. And if those don't hold, then we have the golden pocket around the high sevens to about 7 flats. This could be where NIO's ultimate bottom will be. But I don't really know how to predict the exact bottom. No one can predict the exact bottom. It's very dependent on many factors. Like I said, the best thing we could do is watch it on a level to level basis and then dollar cost average at these lower levels and just be prepared to hold, right? Not financial advice, but I just wanted to make this as clear as possible for everyone. All right. So, what am I saying in conclusion? This may have been the bottom. It is possible, but it seems a little bit less likely because of the stress in the financial markets, because of the stress in the credit markets, and the fact that we are seeing the markets at a very greedy state that often triggers tops. We're also seeing weakness in tech right now. We're seeing a potential earnings recession. We're seeing a slowdown in demand in China. All these things could have negative effects on NIO. It is the truth. Nobody wants to, like, or at least most people don't want to accept it, but it is what it is. And this could lead to even more pain for NIO investors. I just have to be honest with everyone. We could see this thing in the nines very soon. There's no guarantee that the bottom is even in. The eights are also very possible, and we do have this golden pocket in the sevens. So please, I know this is stressful, it's painful, but I just want to remind you all of my previous video where I showed you NIO could go to hundreds of dollars a share in the long-term future. So I only see these drops as opportunities. I'm still very bullish on NIO long-term. I'm super, super bullish, and I do believe we will make a comeback. Anyways, thank you all so much for listening. I hope this is as clear as possible, and I want the best for all of you. Thank you, NIO to the moon, because the long-term future is still very bright despite the potential short-term pain. And peace out.